In 1981, a mysterious arcade game called Polybius appeared in Portland, Oregon. Its hypnotic screen hooked players, but left them with headaches, amnesia, and fear. Whispers of men in black suits and vanished cabinets fueled the legend. Was it a game, a conspiracy, or something darker? Let's uncover the truth behind Polybius, a digital ghost that still haunts us. In the early 1980s, arcade games were the heartbeat of youth culture. Neon-lit rooms filled with the bleeps and bloops of Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Donkey Kong drew kids and teens like moths to a flame. But in Portland, Oregon, a strange story emerged from the glow of those CRT screens, a tale of a game called Polybius. This wasn't just another quarter-munching cabinet. According to legend, Polybius was a game that hooked players instantly, caused amnesia, addiction, and even madness. Some say it was a government experiment, others claim it was a corporate conspiracy, and a few whisper it never existed at all. So what's the truth behind Polybius? Was it a real game, a psychological weapon, or just a ghost story born in the age of 8-bit graphics? Let's dive into the urban legend that's haunted gamers for decades. The story begins in 1981 in the suburbs of Portland. Arcades were everywhere. Malls, bowling alleys, corner stores. Kids would pump quarters into machines for hours, chasing high scores and bragging rights. But one day, a new game appeared in a handful of arcades. Its cabinet was sleek, black, and unassuming, with the name Polybius written in stark white letters. No flashy artwork, no cartoonish characters, just the name and a screen that pulsed with hypnotic patterns. Players who approached it described a game unlike anything they'd seen. It was a shooter, maybe, or a puzzle game, with abstract shapes, spirals, polygons, fractals, moving in ways that seemed to defy the blocky graphics of the era. The controls were simple, but the gameplay was intense, almost trance-like. You didn't just play Polybius, it played you. Word spread fast. Kids lined up to try it, drawn by its mysterious aura. But something was off. Players reported strange side effects after just a few minutes. Headaches, nausea, dizziness. Some said they couldn't stop thinking about the game, even dreaming about its swirling patterns. Others claimed they forgot entire hours after playing, as if their memories had been erased. One teenager allegedly told his friends he saw shadowy figures, men in black suits, watching the arcade while he played. These men weren't there to play. They were collecting data, swapping out cartridges, or maybe something more sinister. Within weeks, the rumors grew darker. Kids were having seizures. Some stopped sleeping, unable to shake the game's hold. A few vanished entirely, though no police reports ever confirmed this. Then, as quickly as it appeared, Polybius was gone. The cabinets vanished from arcades, leaving no trace. By the end of 1981, it was as if the game had never existed. The name Polybius itself is a clue to the mystery. In Greek history, Polybius was a historian known for his work on the rise of Rome, emphasizing truth and evidence over myth. Naming a game after him feels ironic, almost mocking, given how little evidence of Polybius exists. The legend didn't gain traction until the early 2000s, when the internet gave urban myths a new life. In 2003, a post on a gaming forum called coinop.org detailed the Polybius story, claiming it was a government experiment gone wrong. The post described a game developed by a shadowy company called Sinneslöschen, a German word roughly translating to sense deletion. According to the post, Sinneslöschen was a front for a CIA or NSA operation, testing mind control technology on unsuspecting kids. The game's visuals were allegedly laced with subliminal messages, designed to manipulate brainwaves or induce psychological effects. The men in black suits? They were agents monitoring the experiment, collecting data on how players reacted. This idea wasn't as far-fetched as it sounds. The 1980s were the tail end of the Cold War, a time when paranoia about government overreach was at its peak. The CIA's MKUltra program, which ran from the 1950s to the 1970s, was declassified in the late 1970s, revealing experiments with LSD, hypnosis, and other mind control techniques. By 1981, the public knew the government had a history of using citizens as guinea pigs. Could Polybius have been a digital continuation of those experiments, using arcade games as a delivery system? The technology was there. Early arcade games were built on simple microprocessors, but they could display rapid, flickering patterns, perfect for subliminal messaging. Studies from the era showed that flashing lights at certain frequencies could trigger seizures or altered states of consciousness, a phenomenon called photosensitive epilepsy. If someone wanted to weaponize a game, the arcade was the ideal testing ground, a place where kids gathered, unsupervised, with no oversight. But the government angle isn't the only theory. Some point to the arcade industry itself. The early 1980s were a gold rush for game developers. Companies like Atari, Namco, and Midway were raking in billions, but competition was fierce. Could Polybius have been a prototype from a company pushing the limits of player engagement? Game designers already knew how to make games addictive. Think of the dopamine hit from a high score or the just one more try loop of Pac-Man. What if Sinneslöschen was a real company, experimenting with visuals or sound frequencies to make players physically dependent on their game? The side effects, addiction, amnesia, seizures, could have been unintended consequences of a failed experiment. When the risks became clear, the company pulled the plug, erasing all evidence to avoid lawsuits or bad press. Then there's the skeptical view. Polybius never existed. The legend has all the hallmarks of a classic urban myth, like the killer in the back seat or alligators in the sewers. Arcades in the 1980s were social hubs, breeding grounds for rumors. Kids loved to one-up each other with wild stories, and a mysterious game that messed with your mind fit the bill. The side effects attributed to Polybius, headaches, nausea, obsession, could just be the result of kids spending hours in dark, noisy arcades, staring at flickering screens while hopped up on soda and candy. The men in black? Maybe they were just arcade employees swapping out game cartridges, misremembered through the lens of teenage paranoia. As for the name Sinneslöschen, it's suspiciously convenient, too perfect for a creepy conspiracy. A native German speaker might notice it's not a natural word, more like something a non-German would invent to sound ominous. The lack of physical evidence supports the skeptics. No Polybius cabinet has ever been found. No circuit boards, no cartridges, no flyers, nothing. Arcade collectors, a obsessive bunch, have scoured the globe for rare games. Yet Polybius remains a ghost. The earliest known mention of the game comes from that 2003 coin-op post, over 20 years after the alleged events. If Polybius was real, why did it take so long for the story to surface? Arcade culture was well documented in the 1980s, with magazines like Electronic Games and fanzines covering every new release. Yet none mention Polybius. Portland's arcades, like the Electric Palace or Wonderland, have no record of a game by that name. Even the supposed side effects, seizures, disappearances, lack corroboration. No news articles from 1981 report arcade-related illnesses or missing kids tied to a specific game. But here's where it gets weird. Despite the lack of evidence, Polybius feels real. The story taps into something primal, a fear of technology outpacing our understanding, of hidden forces manipulating us. And there are crumbs of truth that keep the legend alive. In 1981, arcade games did cause health concerns. A 12-year-old boy in Illinois had a seizure while playing Tempest, a game known for its intense, vector-based visuals. The incident made national news, sparking debates about the safety of video games. Other games, like Defender and Asteroids, were so addictive that cities passed laws limiting arcade hours to curb truancy. Polybius could be an exaggerated memory of these real events, a kernel of truth wrapped in layers of myth. There's also the curious case of real games with Polybius-like qualities. Take Berserk, released in 1980. It was a fast-paced shooter with a disorienting maze of robots, and it had a dark reputation. 2 players reportedly died of heart attacks after marathon sessions, one in 1981, another in 1982. The game's intense visuals and relentless pace could push players to their limits, or consider Tempest with its hypnotic, spinning patterns. Some players reported dizziness or nausea after playing, and its cabinet was blamed for triggering seizures. These games show that the technology of the era could produce effects similar to those attributed to Polybius. Maybe Polybius was a real game, misremembered or rebranded by rumor. The legend also intersects with the history of arcade hardware. Early arcade games used CRT monitors, which flicker at specific frequencies. If a game's refresh rate synced with a player's brainwaves, it could theoretically induce altered states, euphoria, confusion, even hallucinations. Sound design played a role too. Games like Galaga used low-frequency drones that could create unease or fixation. A 1980s study on biofeedback showed that certain audio-visual stimuli could influence brain activity, a technique later used in early VR experiments. If Polybius existed, it could have exploited these principles, intentionally or not. The Men in Black swapping cartridges? They might have been technicians tweaking the game's code to amplify its effects, testing how far they could push the human mind. Let's explore the government angle further. The idea of Polybius as a CIA experiment isn't pure fantasy. The MKUltra program, though officially ended in 1973, left a legacy of distrust. Declassified documents show the CIA explored everything, from drugs to hypnosis to control behavior. By the 1980s, technology offered new possibilities. Arcade games were a perfect vector. They attracted young, impressionable minds, and their enclosed cabinets hid whatever code or hardware was inside. A game laced with subliminal images, flashing at 1/30th of a second, too fast for conscious detection, could plant ideas or trigger physiological responses. The Portland setting adds plausibility. Oregon was home to several military and research facilities in the 1980s, including the Bonneville Power Administration, which worked on classified projects. Could a rogue operation have used local arcades as a testing ground? Yet the government theory has holes. Running an experiment in public arcades would be risky. Too many variables, too little control. Kids could walk away mid-game, parents could complain, and arcade owners might notice something odd. The CIA would likely prefer a lab setting, where subjects could be monitored closely. And why Portland? It's a mid-sized city, not a major hub like New York or Los Angeles. If Polybius was a test, why not deploy it nationwide, where it could blend into the arcade boom? The Men in Black also feel like a trope, straight out of UFO lore or spy thrillers. If they were real, their presence would draw attention, not deflect it. The corporate theory is just as compelling. The arcade industry was cutthroat, with companies racing to outdo each other. A game that physically addicted players would be a goldmine, even if unethical. Developers were already experimenting with psychology. Think of the flow state induced by Tetris or the Skinner box mechanics of slot machines. A company like Sinneslöschen could have been a skunkworks project, funded by a major player like Atari or Sega, testing a game that pushed the boundaries of engagement. If it backfired, causing seizures or bad press, the company could bury it, destroy the cabinets, and move on. Atari did face lawsuits in the 1980s over game-related injuries, and the industry crashed in 1983, partly due to oversaturation and public backlash. Polybius could have been a casualty of that era, a race to avoid liability. But the simplest explanation might be the best. Polybius is a myth, born from the cultural anxieties of the 1980s. Video games were new, and society feared their impact. Parents worried about addiction, politicians decried violence, and psychologists studied the effects of prolonged screen time. Urban legends thrive in these gaps of uncertainty, and Polybius fit the mold. Its story spread because it resonated, not because it was true. The internet amplified it, turning a local rumor into a global mystery. Websites like Snopes and Reddit dissected the legend, but even skeptics couldn't resist its allure. In 2006, a supposed Polybius ROM surfaced online, but it was quickly debunked as a hoax. Its code was modern, not 1980s era. A 2012 documentary claimed to have found a Polybius cabinet, but it was a promotional stunt for a retro arcade. Still, the legend persists because it's more than a story, it's a warning. Polybius reflects our fear of technology's hidden dangers, from subliminal ads to social media algorithms. It's a reminder that even innocent things, like a game, can have power over us. The truth? Polybius probably never existed, at least not as described. It's likely a mix of real events: seizures from Tempest, heart attacks from Berserk, the addictive pull of arcades, blown out of proportion by rumor and time. But the lack of evidence doesn't kill the mystery, it fuels it. Somewhere, in a dusty warehouse or a forgotten arcade, a black cabinet with Polybius, in white letters, might still be waiting, its screen flickering with secrets we're not ready to face. So, where does that leave us? The Polybius legend is a puzzle with no solution, a game with no final level. It's a testament to the power of stories, how they can outlive the truth and become something more. Whether it was a government plot, a corporate misstep, or just a tall tale, Polybius lives on in the collective imagination, a digital ghost from the 1980s that still haunts us. Maybe that's the real lesson. In a world of screens and code, the line between myth and reality is thinner than we think.